Oh, let me tell you something. Busting makes me feel good.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Blockbusting, the podcast where we love to hate the movies. I'm your host, Jay Light. Joining me today, my guest, Brett Erickson.
Hi, Jay Light. How are you?
I'm good, Brett. How are you, man?
I'm really good. Thanks for having me on.
Glad.
I look forward to taking apart this disgusting picture.
Man, this is a tough one for me because I enjoy episodes on some level where I like the movie and you or whatever guest is in the chair didn't, and that's what we got going on today. We're talking about I, Tonya. That's what you hate.
I didn't like it.
So, what's your deal?
You know,
First of all, how dare you?
First off, I would just like to say that it's these sort of insightful questions that really make you one of the consummate podcast hosts.
Thank you.
Brett, what's your deal? I mean, it really cuts to the heart of the issue right from the start. I think.
Look, and I don't want to go through all that bullshit. Let's go through your emotions.
Hey, dude, what's wrong with you?
How could you?
All right. I find the story of Tonya Harding very interesting. And I find Tonya Harding an interesting character, and everybody in her life interesting characters. And I wanted the movie. So I guess it sucks when you say you're mad at a movie for not being what you wanted it to be. It's like, well, if it would have been something different. This is the movie they made,
right? Yeah.
So I understand all of that, but I would have rather seen either a documentary with Tonya Harding in it and her mother, and just let that be the thing and tell the story, or I want to see it be funnier and be a Coen Brothers movie and actually be hilarious, because I didn't think it was either.
Gotcha. You felt like it kind of walked the...
It went in between. I think it would have been a great Coen Brothers movie.
It would have been a great Coen Brothers movie.
Because there were moments that were Coen Brothers-y, where you're like, oh, this is like the Shane character, right?
Sean Eckhart, the bodyguard,
Sean Eckhart,
quote unquote bodyguard.
Yeah. Now he was great, but and I know he's dead, so you couldn't have had him in a real documentary. Mm-hmm. But and there were moments when he was a part of it that it seemed Coen Brothers-y.
Yeah,
and that was okay, but then it didn't really deliver on that. But here's my main issue.
Hit me with it.
Margot Robbie is too hot to be Tonya Harding. There is nothing about... I don't care if she is open mouth chewing gum and putting on her white trash voice. If she looked like that, they would... If Tonya actually looked like Margot Robbie, nothing that happened to Tonya would have happened. She would have gotten the respect she deserved. She would have had a brilliant ice skating career, and she wouldn't have been trailer trash, not being respected by the judges, because Tonya Harding is not an attractive person.
Yes, we know that we've seen the footage.
Right. Yeah. So the whole time I'm looking at Margot Robbie, I'm just like, no, I am not.
I don't buy it.
I felt like a Saturday Night Live sketch of Tonya Harding.
Interesting. So for those of you who haven't seen I, Tonya, I'll catch you up a little bit. I, Tonya, according to the Facebook Wikipedia page, what am I saying Facebook for? I, Tonya is a 2017 American biographical film directed by Craig Gillespie, written by Stephen Rogers, follows the life of figure skater Tonya Harding and her connection to the 1994 attack on her rival Nancy Kerrigan. It stars Margot Robbie, Sebastian Stan, Allison Janney, a bunch of other people. It's a movie that sort of takes like this angle of being a mockumentary for parts of it. There's a lot of direct to the camera interviews. There's a lot of fourth wall breaking. But the thing about this movie is, so man, it always I find myself hating myself saying these things always, every single time, because the arguments you're making are not wrong. And I hate having to admit that less than 5 minutes into the episode, but goddamn, you hit
so I'm done here.
I mean, you hit on it. All right, thank you so much for listening, guys.
This is like
great.
roast battle. I already won. We don't even have to do the.
Well, yeah, we're not out of the woods yet. We're not out of the woods. We got so much. We got so many more woods to go through. So all right, let's talk about the movie as a whole for a minute. Now, you saw this. I'm assuming you saw this in theaters when it was out and it was getting all this buzz.
I think I saw it. No, I think I saw it on a screener.
Okay, gotcha. So it's after the fact, it's got all this buzz.
It was already a thing. Yeah,
a lot of hype going on, and this is a movie that I remember when it started playing festivals. There was a lot of talk of people saying, "Oh, this is Margot Robbie's moment. This is her. This is obviously a passion project for her. She helped produce the movie. She." Is doing the a hot girl uglies it up thing that it helps you pretty much guarantee an Oscar nomination, if not a win. Let's look at Charlize Theron.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those moments that I remember seeing the movie and everyone's like, "Oh, it's really it's important drama." And then I started seeing trailers and then it was like, this is a comedy movie, and it started getting nominated for best comedy at the Golden Globes.
Yeah.
And I think it got nominated for best. Let's see. It got nominated for best comedy at some other
got tons
things.
of awards.
Tons of awards. Yeah, it got nominated for a bunch of stuff at the BAFTAs and at the Critics' Choice Movie Awards. Best Actress in a Comedy, best musical or comedy nomination. A lot of stuff that I didn't expect based on the initial reporting of the story.
Right.
And the initial reporting of the movie. What
Yeah.
was your experience like watching the movie with all this hype built up and just seeing it slowly deflate?
I was already. I immediately had the feelings I still have. That
Right.
This. I don't give a shit. And I like because Tonya Harding's in it.
Yeah.
They interview her too, so that's when it hit me that I was like, oh, I just want to hear her talk. She's the person it actually happened to. Let's talk to her. And I've also been on a real run of only watching documentaries.
Okay.
Right? So like I am in a phase of there's so much amazing film out there about shit that's real.
Oh yeah.
That I don't give a fuck if you're doing a play,
Yeah.
which is what you're doing if it's just a movie that is is fiction.
And that's the beauty of a really good documentary too, is it can take real life and make it seem so fantastical or not unrealistic,
Well, I mean,
but it takes these stories and it finds these people who their story deserves to be told.
Right, Making a Murder.
Yeah.
The Jinx.
Yeah.
Wormwood. Have you seen Wormwood
I have
on
not.
Netflix?
I hear
Watch
it's great.
that.
Errol
It's
Morris did that, right?
Errol Morris.
Love the Thin Blue
Unbelievable.
Line.
Yeah.
I love two of my top 20 movies of all time are documentaries: Dear Zachary and The King of Kong.
Yeah.
Both fantastic
I'll have to check
movies.
those out.
Dude, you haven't seen The King of Kong? Oh, man. This is a movie that they actually apparently are still somewhere in development of trying to make it into a real movie. It's about competitive arcade game players. And it's about the war between these two guys.
Oh, is this the one when they were playing that game that it had took them like 4 days to keep going and they had to keep playing it?
No. This is
That's a
one
different one.
Specifically about Donkey Kong, the arcade game.
Okay.
And it follows this dude named two guys, Billy Mitchell and Steve Weavy. And Billy is like this smarmy, like long-haired Florida hot sauce king who's like hot shit, and he won all kinds of awards for like he broke Pac-Man, and he had the Donkey Kong high score, and he was doing all the shit at like age 17. And then he got video game famous in like the 80s or the 90s
Right.
when it was before even anybody was like, what are these things?
Yeah.
And then it follows this other guy, Steve, who like got laid off from his job, and he used his severance to buy a Donkey Kong arcade cabinet, and his wife is like, I don't get it. I don't know why he spends his time playing a video game
Right.
sad in the garage. And it follows this rise of him being like, he gets a new high score, and then they fight back and forth, and it's a great story. And I can totally see why the I, Tonya would have worked. It would have worked so well as a documentary.
Right. Okay. And even take it to the King of Kong.
Mm-hmm.
What if you would have seen a movie about that you're saying that they're trying to make, and but you're introduced to these real characters And I already knew the real characters.
Right.
I was, I remember the Tonya Harding story. So you're like, well, I'd rather see Steve Wiebe himself. He's more interesting than, Brad Pitt as Steve Wiebe.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's the thing about this movie is the best part to me. I think acting wise, at least, Allison Janney, I think, obviously deserves all the accolades she got. I think she did a great job as the mom.
Yeah. the mom, when they talk to the mom at the end, right?
Yeah.
They talk to the mom. The mom is such a fucking crazy character that that's not hard to act, right? Like it's like, all right, so here, this kind of goes into another part of why I didn't like the comedy angle of this.
Let's get into it.
Because it's like when you're doing stand-up and then after the show, somebody comes up to you and says, you should meet my buddy Steve. He's hilarious. He has all the funniest stories. And then they're like, oh, yeah, this one time Steve, he fucking took his shirt off and he jumped off the roof and he took a shit in a car on a moon roof. And it's like, yeah, but that you can't do stand-up about that.
Right.
Because stand-up is about why this cup of coffee is funny.
Yeah.
It's about what's funny and obvious things that you don't see as funny. And it's like the comedy in Tonya Harding's story would have come through if you did a documentary about them.
Right.
Like instead of because the story itself is wild and crazy. And so trying to be like, we're being funny about something that's already funny. Mm-hmm. It's like when the situation, like a situation comedy always used to have to be about a funny situation.
Right.
And Seinfeld changed that to now it's just going to be about nothing. And the comedy will bubble
rise
up.
out of that. Yeah.
And this, to me, was like the old way. Like, oh, this is a funny situation, and we're going to do funny about it. Like, well, you're pointing at something that already we all know is funny, and it's not hard. It doesn't make me laugh.
You're making good points. That's the other thing. The other thing I was going to say, the other part who I really liked in the movie is the guy who plays Sean Eckhart. It's what's his name? Paul Walter Hauser. And he does a great job. But
He's
then
great.
also you see at the very end of the movie, it's just that's exactly what that guy was like.
Yeah.
They don't have to do anything different to make this character compelling and so entertaining to watch.
It's a really mind-bogglingly fucked up hillbilly story.
Right.
Like, I know what we'll do. We'll hit Nancy Kerrigan in the knee with a stick. That'll be great. So that by itself is fascinating to me. But yeah, I would rather just talk to them.
Have you ever? This is another this. There is something to be said about like the loss in quality that comes when you take a real life person and an actor boils them down to the essentials and plays them.
It's shitty.
Have you ever heard of a guy named Jesco White?
Yeah.
So
the Dancing Outlaw.
Yeah, the
I know
Dancing
all about
Outlaw.
Jesco
Exactly.
White. Yeah.
I've seen him do a whole bunch of random shit from like back in the 80s and 90s. And then The Wild and Wonderful Whites of West Virginia also features him heavily because it's all about his family.
Right.
And I can't imagine ever getting somebody to play Jesco White in a movie.
Right.
I just can't because there's no one who could capture him the way that he already is.
You have just given a perfect analogy for my problem with this movie. Is that's to me Tanya's a Jesco type character. It's not as interesting as the actual person. Jesco was a maniac.
Yeah, Jesco's a maniac. There's videos of Jesco talking about how he's going to beat his wife because she makes scrambled eggs wrong.
Runny eggs.
These fucking sloppy eggs.
Runny eggs. And then he'd go out and he'd do some outlaw dancing.
Yeah.
Some outlaw tapping.
It's wild, man. See, that's the thing. I think that the parts of the movie that I enjoyed more were the parts where it felt like a tragedy unfolding and not necessarily a comedy. Mm-hmm. I think that the scenes where, and again, as much as I like the character and as much as I like the actor playing him, the stuff with Sean Eckhart is so completely like in another universe from everything else that's going on. That he became that the fact that he's like the orchestrator of all of this crazy nonsense is enough of a tragedy on its own. You don't need to play it for laughs.
Yeah, it was like handing a hand grenade to a baby. Like, I wonder what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like that guy was just a complete tool and all of a sudden just did stuff.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, here, you handle this whole idea. And like, oh yeah.
Cut to a montage of him telling everybody in bars, "Oh yeah, I made that. I
did that.
I did that. I beat Nancy Kerrigan with a stick."
Yeah, crazy. So all right. So also, how about this this angle on another problem? And where you talk about Margot Robbie, being so good and how it was her passion project. She's a producer of it. She is like, I'm going to be Tonya Harding,
right?
And the angle of if you take somebody who's beautiful and you ugly her up, then that's
Oscar bait.
What a brave acting performance.
I mean, that's
that may be
but that's part of the Academy being up their own ass, of course.
Yeah, because who cares about all of that shit? I don't, but Margot Robbie does,
right?
So
because that's acting,
right? And that's also going to make her, it's going to increase her bottom line by so much.
Oh yeah.
But the overarching story of Tonya Harding and her stupid boyfriend and her stupid boyfriend's friend and her mother abusing her and all of this shit is that she was a tragic character because she was exploited all the time, all the way through it. And Margot Robbie is like the final person to wring from Tonya Harding the last little bit of humanity she had and say, I am going to make your life about me. And, what does Tonya Harding get out of it? Not jack shit.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, she might get some money, but the exact same thing, like Margot Robbie saying, I am going to portray Tonya on the big screen so that people can understand her. I don't even know if she said any of that shit, but you know what I mean? Like, I am going to show the humanity in Tonya Harding.
Right.
No, you're just the last person who is there to suck her dry.
Yeah.
And that's what that is. If you really gave a shit about it, you wouldn't have to be in it.
Right.
So, but the irony that she was exploited her whole life, and then the movie that is supposed to show that exploitation and make you feel sorry for her does the most exploitation of her.
It is a very exploitative movie.
Yes.
It's extremely exploitative.
Yeah.
Because it takes her story, and then there are times when you're like, she's a sympathetic character. And then there are definitely times when she is obviously unsympathetic.
Yeah.
And it's very – because it goes back and forth like that for a lot of the movie.
Well, imagine, if it's the premiere. And Tonya Harding comes to the premiere, and then the premiere is over, and everybody walks back out onto the red carpet for accolades, but everyone claps and cheers and goes and talks to Margot Robbie, and Tonya Harding is standing over on the side with nobody gives a shit,
right?
Because she's not. It's Margot Robbie's night, not hers,
right?
When Eddie Redmayne won the Academy Award for playing Stephen Hawking, he didn't even thank Stephen Hawking,
right? That's
like
ridiculous
for such a brave performance. Brave performance. You pretended to be to have the thing he lives with every fucking day. Like that's the kind of thing too. Like that's another. In fact, if I would have thought of that movie before I thought of this movie, if this show would have been on a year ago, that's the movie I would have.
I mean, I'm glad you didn't pick that because I have no desire to see A Theory of Everything. And
I only watched a few minutes of it.
Yeah.
But I was so angered by just watching Eddie Redmayne win an award and then be like, oh, I'm so great.
Well, it's one of those things.
Fuck you.
I remember at the time, that's one of those things that just felt like such a foregone conclusion, too. Like, I'm even going to look up right now. I guarantee that there are other better performances that happened in movies that year. And the thing is, the Academy, and particularly the acting branch of the Academy, loves giving awards to people who it's just like, oh, this is so brave what you did. this is, and you totally take the performance out of the question, because sometimes there are definitely times when the performance and the uglification process, or whatever we want to call it, they go in line with each other. Like, I think, and I have never seen Monster, but I hear that Charlize Theron is fantastic in Monster.
Right.
Besides the fact that she has to go and pull off this totally different look, it's about it's a different kind of movie. And God damn it, why is this so impenetrable right now? Wikipedia, come on, what are you doing? Critical response. Accolades. Here we go. 87th Academy Awards. Ba-bam. Okay, so here are the Best Actor nominees for this year. Eddie Redmayne win for Stephen Hawking's Theory of Everything. Steve Carell got nominated. Bradley Cooper got nominated. Benedict Cumberbatch and Michael Keaton. And that was the year that I thought, I never saw Foxcatcher. I heard it was great. I
thought Foxcatcher was really long. It's one of those movies where it's like a lot of shots of Steve Carell in kind of like a old, weird, fat guy, kind of creepy wrestling coach kind of guy.
Yeah, he had some facial prosthetics. I know that.
He sits in a chair a lot. You know what I mean? Like, and there's lots of long shots of him being weird and creepy and contemplative. I'm like,
cinema.
Yeah. So who else you got?
I was gonna say, I wish that Michael Keaton would have won that year. And I remember the moment of like Michael Keaton, you see on the broadcast that Michael Keaton is like about to pull his acceptance speech out, and then he drops it as soon as they announce Eddie Redmayne. He's like, oh, God.
Yeah. That was certainly more interesting.
Yeah, and say what you will about Birdman being a movie that is, again, very angled towards Hollywood people and art people.
Yeah.
I think that it's a more compelling performance to watch somebody unravel the way that Michael Keaton does in Birdman compared to Eddie Redmayne in Theory of Everything.
And I'll tell you this, that I think that Benedict Cumberbatch in The Imitation Game was the best of all of them.
And he was...
that was a great movie. I really enjoyed that movie. I thought he was fantastic in it. And that's the kind of movie... now, I don't know, maybe I'm being a hypocrite because maybe that's the same sort of thing. But he's playing a real character.
But what do you think the difference is between his performance and, say, Margot Robbie's performance or Eddie Redmayne's performance?
That's a good question. I don't feel like the real person that Benedict Cumberbatch was portraying is being used in the way that Stephen Hawking is being used by Eddie Redmayne or Tonya Harding is being used by Margot Robbie. Like, it's just a telling of a story of an interesting guy, and it doesn't... You don't have to extract any blood from the character that Benedict Cumberbatch was playing to play that person.
Gotcha.
Whereas Eddie Redmayne did and Margot Robbie did. Like, it took a real person there for you to, like that guy's the character that Benedict Cumberbatch plays in Imitation Game has been dead for 60 years. And nobody remembers who it was anyway. So he's like saying, this is this guy's story.
Right.
But and it's not like it doesn't, like, I think Tonya Harding was definitely exploited in I, Tonya. I'm not sure that Stephen Hawking necessarily was to that extent. I just don't care. I'm not going to congratulate Eddie Redmayne for a brave performance.
Right.
I just don't give a fuck. It's not that hard to sit still. You know what I'm doing? Like, fuck.
Can you work a speak and spell? You can play.
Hey, we'll even put.
You can play Stephen Hawking.
And if you fuck up your lines, they'll just fix it in post.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I thought Benedict Cumberbatch was better than Eddie Redmayne that year too. So, but so with I, Tonya, it seems like you're pretending that you're going to help Tonya Harding by making this movie about her, but really Tonya Harding is going to help you become a big movie star.
Right. Because Tonya Harding is, we can't deny, that's a compelling story. Yeah. It's so, I remember I was 4 years old and I remember hearing about, I have very early memories of like the news around that time, and Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan was a big news story that I remember happening. And that picture of Nancy Kerrigan. Why? It's iconic.
Yeah, that was so crazy.
So I would have loved to. God damn
So
it,
I win.
Brett. You win.
I win.
It would have been better if it had just played as a straight tragedy.
Give it to Errol Morris.
And a lot of
Give it to Errol Morris. Like the way Errol Morris does Wormwood, you should watch. You know what the Wormwood story is about?
It's
the
about CIA stuff, right?
Yeah, it's about what the CIA was doing in the 50s and then covering up in the 70s. And it's told through one interesting guy's tale who was a CIA scientist.
Okay.
And so they did recreations of the story from the 50s with Peter Skarsgård.
Okay.
Is one of the main people in it, and a bunch of other people. And so there is dramatic recreations like I, Tonya does.
Right.
But it's still him telling a true story, not trying to be like, like, which is what I, Tonya is doing.
Yeah.
When they're telling the Tonya Harding story. Honestly, to me, every time Margot Robbie was on the screen in her, because they do the confession style stuff where they're like sitting in a chair talking into the camera. And every time that happened, I felt like it was a Saturday Night Live sketch. I mean, I think that's how bad it was. I can't believe people thought that was good acting. It's like, that looked like it was thrown together on the cheap, and you shouldn't be playing Tonya Harding.
Is there another actress that you think, if you had the ideal Tonya Harding story, that wasn't a documentary?
Jennifer Jason Leigh, 20 years ago.
Great pick.
That's who could have done it, because she could have done it right. She wouldn't have done it to be like, oh, look at me, I can make myself look like trash. She would have gotten to the compelling part of Tonya.
And then this movie
went with it.
Also would have been made in 1998.
It would have had to have been made.
It would have been irrelevant.
It would have had to have been fresh.
Yeah, and it's not made almost 25 years later.
Yeah.
And it's just like, all right, let's figure out what cool parts of Tonya Harding we can turn into GIFs and memes.
Yeah. You know, in the 1 year that Rogan and Stanhope had the Man Show, one of their things was that Stanhope boxed Tonya Harding.
Yeah, I read about that in his book.
Yeah, I would have rather seen that in the. We should have seen
that. Would have been great.
Real life Tonya is crazy. Like it should be. Why there hasn't been a reality show yet? They should just start following her around with a camera, because she's crazy, and she fought Doug Stanhope in a boxing ring. How funny is that? And neither one of them, like, they couldn't even punch each other. They're both like, she is a beaten down kind of. I don't know if to say she's an alcoholic, but she's just had a rough life. Her body is not in good shape. She is not out there sticking and moving and throwing jabs.
She's not in boxing because she's a good boxer. She's in boxing because she's a name who can sell at least more tickets than some other nobody.
Yeah. And Doug Stanhope is, a little gray in the liver, as they say.
Right.
He's got a glass jaw. He's not going to, like, that.
He's got a glass jaw and a glass liver.
Yeah, totally. So, I would have loved to have talked to her about what that was like, shit like that. Like, she's had all kinds of interesting things happen to her since the Kerrigan thing.
I would be really interested, because I think the Coen brothers angle that you were talking about earlier, I think that would work, but it would have to be such a even smaller version of the story.
Oh,
it would have had to. I think it would have worked if they had just focused on the attack itself and not really covered any of the other stuff about her as a child. By the way, that is one of the most egregious parts of Margot Robbie's performance. Is them like, all right, we're gonna throw braces on her. That's how we know she's 15.
Right. Oh. God, yeah, but the little run of the movie when it is the Sean Eckhart part where Jeff Gillooly and him hatch this plan, they get these two complete morons from somewhere to do the job for them. It's only like 10 minutes of the movie, but you're right. That's when it felt Coen Brothers-y.
Right.
And that's when if you could have given those two guys that 10 minutes and said, put Josh Brolin in this and make this a whole thing.
Yeah.
It would have been fantastic.
Or even a little Steven Soderbergh, like Ocean's 11, Logan Lucky kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
Did you see Logan Lucky? Logan Lucky, have you seen the Ocean's movies
Yeah.
that Soderbergh made? So Logan Lucky's basically like at one point they even call it in the movie the heist that they pull off, the Ocean's 7-Eleven, because it's basically like the white trash version of Ocean's 11, again based on a real story where a guy got him and his brother and some other people together and they robbed the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And it's great, and they have like Channing Tatum's
really
in it.
happened?
I believe so. I think it's based on a real
Because
story.
robbing a stock car racing track instead of a casino is the perfect white trash version of robbing a casino.
Let's see. Is this based on a real story? No, it might not be. Who knows? But either way,
Logan Lucky.
Logan Lucky, and that's a great movie, and I would encourage everybody to check that out because you got, oh my God, Daniel Craig plays this guy Johnny Bang, who's like, they break him out of prison. He's he's like a demolitions expert, and he's just like, it's a complete 180 from anything you've seen him do. If you're watching like the Bond movies and anything. He's so great at playing white trash. It's really, really amazing to watch.
Yeah,
I
check it
definitely
out.
recommend that. Well, God, I mean, man, I'm wrong, I guess. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie in a little bit, but I enjoy watching it.
Everyone can enjoy it for what it is. My girlfriend loved it. She watched it again the other day because it popped up on Amazon or something. She's like, "Oh," and when the parts I watched, I'm like, "Yeah, all right." But when everyone was gaga over it, and that's when we did see it in that midst of all the other, like, oh, this is going to be one of the big ones. I'm like, nope.
Yeah, I do think, and that's the thing, I don't regret watching it, and I don't feel like it is a bad movie, but I feel like it does have some parts that it could have been better. It really could have been. That's the thing about poking holes and shit, though. You know, that's the best part about this podcast.
Absolutely.
You just get to see the water balloon of my love for a movie just slowly leak out onto the table in front of us.
You'll be like you'll hate movies more than anybody else.
Honestly,
by the end of this podcast run.
Honestly, that's the hardest part about going to movies now after starting this podcast is that I watch it and I'm immediate. I've gotten better at going into a movie and just really having no expectations. Like I've stopped reading movie reviews. I've really just focused on like, I'll watch a trailer and be like, that looks interesting. I want to go see that.
And then cut yourself off from any access to reviews or things.
Yeah.
Like when I want to see something, that's what I do right away. I'm like, oh, I don't want to know anything more about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm already in.
Like I saw and now I find myself getting a lot more surprised by movies and appreciating them, but also it's so easy for me to pick apart a movie and being like, what are you doing here?
It's the same reason comics don't like watching a lot of stand-up comedy. I can't watch it without going, you worded that wrong, dumbass. Yep. Like I can't just enjoy it, you know? So it's the same thing. Now that's already happened to you for comedy, and now it's happened to you for movies too. You should start a music podcast and ruin all of the artistic and beautiful parts of your life so that you can enjoy none of them.
You know what? I feel like I'm going to be a great curmudgeon in like 10 years.
So mad.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I'll be living in New York. I'll be so deep. I will have a deeper radio voice from all the angry cigarettes that I'm smoking outside movie theaters and concerts being like, these kids don't know what they got. So you've been recommending some stuff documentary-wise over the course of the show.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that, instead of I, Tonya, that you would recommend people watch?
I have been, Wormwood. If you haven't seen Wormwood, it's really good. I just watched The Staircase.
I've heard nothing but amazing things about that.
Yeah, I thought it was, it's one of those, it was too long. It's 13 episodes.
Ew.
So, but the way it unfolds, it kind of had to be like it was an 8-episode series 10 years ago.
Right.
And then more things have happened. Like if they would have done it now, they could have made it into 8 episodes and eliminated some of the early stuff where it was like, I don't think we needed to go this deep into the background. But, it is. But it's one of those where you get completely, like I binge watched it over 2 days. So like the people in it, the real people in it got in my head. You know what I mean? Where you're just like, I've been around this person too much, but you're getting so invested in the story, you have to watch it all the way through.
Right.
And it's fascinating. So I thought it was really good, but you have to, it's 13 hours long. Wormwood is, I think, 5 or 6 episodes.
That sounds
and
more
it's
my speed.
great. It's so good. In fact, go watch Wormwood, and if you've already seen Wormwood, watch it again.
Okay.
I don't know.
We'll figure it out. Brett, thanks for coming on today, man.
My pleasure, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Where can the listeners find you on the internet?
I am on Twitter and Instagram at IBrettMyPants, and I'm on Facebook as well.
And I'm on the internet at Diet J on Twitter and Instagram, jlightcomedy.com for show dates. And
Can I say one more real quick plug?
yeah, of course.
I just remembered this. I am doing a week of shows in August
Oh, great.
in the San Francisco area with Brendan Walsh.
Oh, I love Brendan.
Oh, he's so good. So we've got like 5 shows set up there. It's just the 2 of us booked a bunch of, it's like the Hemlock Theater in San Francisco and Sally Tomatoes in Rohnert Park. Anyway, go to either BrettEricksonComedy.com or BrendanWalsh.com if you're in the San Francisco area and buy tickets and come see us.
Definitely go do that. Brett
And it's
Brendan,
August,
both fantastic.
like August 10th through the 14th or something like that.
Perfect. That's
Thank you.
It's going to be great. You guys should definitely go check that out. Folks, this has been Blockbusting. Go see something good for a change.